So, my name is Eric Eisman. I come from Auburn, Maine, up in the almost northeasternmost part of the United States. And I'm very much driven, and I want to say that this is motivated by student requests. This is a project that came about through the answering and successive iterations of responding to student requests who wanted to get more out of a course that they were initially taking with me. If I can give you a greater context, it would be I was teaching it an IoT course I had designed and was teaching middle school students at the time in the summer, and they were learning basic concepts of IoT as I kind of like go a little bit through the main presentation for the IoT course. So they were in the context of this IoT course and learning fundamentals of designing, custom firmware for IoT devices. And then they got to the point where they were learning how to create web services that interacted with it. I had a basic type of application that they would look at initially to get started, and then they would customize the application. So it was in the context of that course that I had students reach out to me, and they said, hey, rather than just this dashboard showing me my sensor values in this IoT context, could we, because we heard that you did some game programming, could we possibly just connect this IoT device into a game? And that's where the whole project started. And I was using Glitch as a free service because accessibility is at the core of this whole thing, and responsiveness to students, and the management, easy management for teachers. That's pretty much the core of everything. It's getting the students as much as what they want while being able to deliver the learning targets that we need to deliver as educators, and at the same time empowering all educators to be able to facilitate lessons and experiences with the students to help them advance their understanding of not only the learning target material, but also some of their own goals that might be somewhat extraneous to the learning targets. So I put a lot of time into looking at methodologies and best practices and ways of going about getting students engaged at a higher level and making it easier for teachers at the same time. And at the end of last year, which was my first little trial year in getting this together, I did run a little pre-post test survey with the students, pretty much towards like self-efficacy, finding out if they thought that they could be a computer programmer, they can identify as one, if they would consider a career in programming. And I had some positive bumps in both of those survey targets. So I say that this project is for building either projects that can last over an entire year. It could be the basis for a course curriculum. It could be an experience. Welcome. Welcome. If you're just arriving, I have in the chat, you could see I have a link to this presentation. I'm going to briefly go over the presentation right here, and then commence with some discussion and kind of flesh out where we go from there. The CS1 project as it stands right now has three components, three main aspects to it. Now, this is very loosely called a game engine. It's a Glitch project. It's also housed at GitHub, and it does facilitate easy, free remixing, forking, if you will, of the project. Students can do it in just a matter of seconds. Teachers can do it in a matter of seconds. And then there's the CS1 IDE, which came about a little bit later in response to more student requests to help them with their focus. And then there are curricular templates, which I'm just starting to work on now, which pretty much now just exist in terms of the lessons and associated quizzes that I have with each of the lessons, and I'll go into that in a little bit. There is also an admin app that anybody can use. Once you do a remix, the admin app can facilitate adding users to the particular account or give them an account to the application as users, because it's a multiplayer game. It's a 3D multiplayer game right off the bat, and it will run right off the bat in Oculus Quest. I only have Oculus Quest at this point, so I didn't try to flesh out the code so it's going to work on every VR headset at the moment. But if anybody's willing to test on the other VR headsets, I did have one person that I did go back and forth with, and they have it working on their Vive, no problem. But I just had to, but I didn't test it myself, so I didn't want to throw the code out there in the wild and maybe mislead some people. But it is VR ready right off the bat, at least right now in Oculus Quest, and I know I have at least proof of concept that it's working fine with the Vive as well, at least from one individual. It's a PWA based application. That's the glitch application, so you can install it on a phone. This is an older version of the engine. The icon, you can customize everything, of course, in terms of the icons and the way that it looks when it's installed. Students like that. Students came to school the first day. They were able to take their little lesson that we did on the first day, and they were able to install that project as an app on their phone and have their friends and family play it. And that was really one of the big pushes for student engagement with it. And you can also install it on the desktop, as I do here. If I go down here, you can start to see some of my big icons maybe coming into the window area. And there is Python support through Brython library. I was going to use transcript at first. Now I've decided to go with Brython, and Brython's getting a lot more robust as a way to transpile between JavaScript, or Python to JavaScript, I should say. And here's a couple use case examples. Of course, computer science classrooms. Also to mention, these are kind of like within the educational arena, but I do have a couple people that are already using the system to prototype their own commercial applications because they just found it easy to get things up and running. But here's some ideas for use cases in other classrooms other than simply computer science. And just a couple of the papers that I read in relation to this. There's a Discord channel, Slack channel, Twitter channel, and the GitHub repositories. And we'll probably end up starting off here for the starter flow and talk about what these are, but I want to get some discussion going here first, at least open it up. Kind of parallel starter project that's kind of cleaned out. Call it CS1 Clean Remix, and I'll illustrate that in a moment. You're welcome to like work along and ask questions as you're doing it, and I think that's probably the best way to do it. And then, of course, this is the CS1 IDE project. So initially, I just would expect that you would probably just go through maybe the existing lessons, or at least go to the existing IDE project and to the existing admin project to get a feel for what they do and how it's organized for the starter flow. And I'm just going to jump to the advanced flow for a second, just so you can see the difference. The first two links are the same for remixing the project. However, the second, the third, and the fourth link, I should say, are actual links for remixing the IDE itself and for, remixing the admin application. So this will enable you to change the lessons. By doing this, this will enable you to change the lessons, and in doing so, customize it exactly to what you need it for. And then the lessons are only basically Google Slides presentations and Google Forms quizzes. Okay, there's nothing really fancy about it. And then the admin remix, I've only started to make a really friendly API for extending the admin application, but I will take your questions as we kind of get some more context where you can ask them. But if we were to do a CS1 remix, like I could literally, at this point, maybe I'll do a clean rem, or I don't know. Maybe I'll do just the CS1 remix first so you can see it. So the CS1 remix takes me to Glitch, as you see right here. It creates a copy of the base project. As it's creating that copy, it assigns it a name. In this case, it called it Butternut Ant. I'm just going to give it a different name by clicking right here just to make it easier for me. I'm going to call it Webinar. Yeah, it wasn't taken, so great. I'm just going to call this Webinar. I'm going to change the admin key right here. And this is essential for security, especially for the kids. I'm just going to put in, they should put in a secure key. I'm just going to put that in there right now because I'll end up deleting this. But now there's different ways of going about this. It's important that when kids are using something like this, it's multiplayer, that you as a teacher, you know where their applications are. And I track my students' applications. And I also really, when we go to the admin app, we talk about the kind of their stewardship over the admin app. But we go in here. That's all we need to do in here. We could read the README, of course. Doesn't hurt to go through the README. But at this point, you can literally open up and I'll just go back to down here, the IDE. You can open up the IDE. Now, if I open up the IDE, like I do over here, it's a glitch project. So you can see over here, it takes a while to spin up because it's in a Docker container. It's in an online service, basically, that takes a few moments to spin up because it's free. They have to do that to still keep it available for free. There's an icon. I highly suggest using Chrome. It's not necessary. I have students that run it on Safari and Firefox or Brave browser, so forth, but I use Chrome or Chromium. And over here up in the bar up here for the URL, the address bar, it says open this link and choose an app because it noticed that I already have the PWA installed. So for you, it would have like a plus sign, possibly, if you have, especially in Google Chrome, it would have a plus sign. You click plus and you can install it right in your laptop. If you were doing this on a phone, and you can, and I have used IDE on my phone, and you can use it on your phone, it would pop up with an add to desktop. But I'm going to actually close this here. I'll run it from the installed. So on my desktop, I have it right here installed as a progressive desktop application, and I just called that Webinar. You just put in the project name. I know I am overly minimalistic and kind of breaking a little bit of the paradigm. I think put 222 there, but and then I can save a password. So I probably will change that login right there to have a click the login button. I just in the past have always taken the shortcut of just hitting enter after entering in the password or admin key in this case. But this is the IDE, and there really isn't much to it. It builds on some technologies that are already out there that are very, very good at doing what they do and laying out windows, facilitating the organization in that kind of basic visual sense. But what I found is the most empowering for other teachers that I've talked to, at least, is the fact that like this, what you see here on the left, even though it goes color-wise, and I designed these purposely to go along with the colors, and you can pick different schemes if you wanted to, but I decided Google Slides presentation to go along with the color scheme, and this is nothing more than a Google Slides presentation. Nothing more, nothing less. Just choosing the colors appropriate. And then whenever the code is showing up, I try to show the code with the same type of syntax highlighting that the students will see. But other than that, it's a Google Slides presentation that you put a link in, and I can show you later for making custom lessons. This particular slide is the last slide of this first lesson. It tells the students to modify the game start handler, and I'm telling them by showing them visually. I start to incorporate back here some of the lingo, if you will, event handlers, and a specific event handler. In this case, they can just look at it and they can see what it is because they can see the code and look over to the right and see, hey, that's how it's different. So I try to use this juxtaposition kind of benefit of having them side by side where they can see the difference between what they have in their code editor. If I just take a shortcut right here and if I just type in cs1.log and just say hello webinar and like that, over here in the top right it says to click save and then click the wrench. I'm going to change that wrench to be a single open end box end wrench, but click the save button. It's in the top right with the diskette, and then click the little wrench beside it. And then down here in the logs, it says it's creating a development build, and it already finished. See how fast that development build was? 1.6 seconds. Now, up here, if I would have had this clicked up here, this icon up in the right, it looks like I can make it larger for temporarily. It shouldn't actually do this, but this particular icon is like a construction site icon for saying that it's in development mode. So the build is going to be a development build, and that's what makes it so fast because I'm not trying to minimize the size of the bundle. But if you click it, it will turn to a ship for being in production mode or ready to ship. So it goes between shipping mode and construction mode or development mode. So that's fairly new. I just added that yesterday. So let's just take a look at what this will result in. So if you click launch the game, and this is what the students see the first day, right? This is what I have them literally start off on the first day. The default password is admin, and then whatever the admin key is for the admin user account.
Welcome to CS1 Community Park. Please join us at 9 p.m. for some tasty roasted marshmallow s'mores.
All right, let me turn that sound down a little bit there. So this little log screen right here, students can grab that, and they'll see that later on they can add these components to different entities and make them grabbable, or add different performance characteristics to them or visual attributes. And this is what they get the first day. And this year, honestly, they were stoked. They were going home and they felt like they legitimately did something, and they did. They went through, and a lot of them had never read anything with some of the wording that was present in that presentation. So I'm just going to jump out of here for now. A lot of them never, and this is just my anecdote, but it's what I dealt with face to face this year. They went through this presentation, and 75% of my students actually are what we call under service, are receiving some type of service, either like a 504 service or IEP service. So a lot of them had been historically maybe struggling with their learning. And I was very happy that this particular kind of layout at least helped facilitate them accomplishing the goal here of this last slide. So this is the first part of the process, getting them remixing, going into the IDE, go through a lesson, and now I have 22 lessons in here. It's starting to get into the UI. Well, depending on what you want to get into, we can explore that. But I'm going to open the admin app, which is, like I said, it's just another. These are all free, and everything is just at the fingertips, changeable. So I'm going to go ahead into the admin app and put in webinar. And in the admin app, you can see I have this. You can see And I really appreciate nobody hacked my admin app. I actually did a presentation recently. I was asked to present down at the Computer Science Teacher Association presentation at Boston University. Somebody there took the password that I put up, and I came into the admin app and I already had like 3 different extra accounts added. I was like, okay, but this is how they would add accounts, and this is where I talk to my students about like stewardship. Maybe they add an account. Diana just populates that. You can change what it populates it with or whatever if you wanted to change it. And then you can just click on this and it adds that user to the database, Diana with password 1234. And if I were to go back to the IDE and launch it, just to illustrate one of the other, so if I do go in there right now, keep the sound down. And I go to the IDE, or excuse me, the admin app, you can see now it tells who's currently playing as well from the admin app. I'm starting to work in some other, this is a card layout. So if I pull this over like this, it's all behaves really nicely on a mobile phone. So if they want to administrate their application from a mobile phone, they can see who's online, who's playing it. And then they can add, in the future, if you wanted to add other cards for the way they can interact with people, like booting them from the server and so forth. So my students are already starting to do that on their own and think around with that. But the admin app at this point basically is allowing you to adjust usernames and passwords, see who's currently playing. Then, of course, if I would leave, the way it's set up right now is it will give 5 seconds to possibly reconnect. And after that, you can see now it's the admin's not currently playing any longer, or is no longer playing. I'm sorry. Yeah. All right. So that's just using the starter flow. That being said, there's a lot to be done with that. There's a lot that students could do in here in terms of getting their feet wet. So we look at like CS concepts involved. We're looking at data types specifically in JavaScript here, and I saw in the survey at least 2 people were focused on Python. So I'm going to jump over here to the getting set up in Python. So in setting up in Python, again, it's using Brython. So initially, you're just going to add an onload event to the body tag. So here is something where the students, they do have to go down, and I have my students do this, they have to go down and find the body tag, which is right over here, and they would have to add, and I'll make it larger, Python start. So they literally have to go down through it and find the body tag. And for some of them, it's like, oh my gosh, where's that at? Look for the word body. And then it would be a matter of going back and forth. For a lot of them, it's like this. Oh, I got to go back and forth and see. Oh, it's onload equals so. And then sometimes you have to click to get it to go back. All right, so I'm just going to put that in there though. Onload equals Python start, trying to use the underscore convention, which is more Pythonic, and then I'll just save that. That's in the, notice there is no build icon. If it doesn't need to be built, if it's not getting pre-processed at all, transpiled or what have you, then it will not have that build icon. So it only has the save icon because that's all that's necessary in this case. So that said, that's the first step. You just have to add that handler in there if you're going to be teaching Python with it. And then lesson 18, we need to add a module loader, or we need to, I'm sorry, use the browser's native module loader, and the syntax for that is import. So we'll type in import Python from, and then we have over here up to directories, Python, and finish line. So if I type that correctly, import Python from and up to directories, import Python from up to directories Python looks like it typed OK, and click save. This one does have to get built, so save and then build. And it indicates to the students that they have to click save and then build. And I do understand that this box end wrench has 2 open ends on it, and the one up here has 1, so I'm going to get to that eventually, unless somebody beats me to it. And then 19, and it built. See how fast it built the development build there? Very, very quickly. But the moment you put it into shipping, if you're going to ship, it's going to take considerably longer. Sometimes not too awful long, but sometimes it can take quite long. But the bundle will be probably about a third to maybe even sometimes a fourth of the size when you have it in shipping mode. But here's Python in action, and I kind of really throw a lot out here because I'm mostly using it for I teach a course, 2 courses that incorporate a lot of Python. One that's Introduction to Python, and another one, Industrial Coding, that uses Python quite a bit. But the course that I'm really focused on in using this is it's mostly for JavaScript. So I just kind of threw a decent example in here. But to take it to, I'm not going to type it all out right now, and you don't have to either if you want. But you notice I always, maybe you haven't noticed, but this is a picture, and I will just always give the students pictures so they cannot copy and paste. Obviously that's good. But if I go to GitHub, some of my students are already keen to this. And then I have lesson. And I really applaud their creativity. But I can just go over here and just grab this code right here because I have, and this is in the wiki, so this is another part of the community too. I didn't kind of broadcast yet, but even in the CS1 IDE wiki, I have a lesson ideas area. So it's a wiki, so anybody can add to it. So lesson ideas, and they're just like pretty much, I'm just using it now for different snippets right now for me to kind of cheat. And nice thing that just needs to be saved because this is actually getting served up on from the public folder, and it's not part of the bundle. So that's pretty cool. I don't have to wait for any build. But if we launch that, provided there was no big issue, when we get to that game start, we can go over here and we can see that this was all done in Python. This box was generated in Python. The animations being conducted in Python, and then of course it's saying a couple things, saying the name of the primitive. The box primitive is an A box primitive, and then this is the message coming from Python. The other one's from the JavaScript end. But that's pretty much it for that in terms of the introductory Python. Now you can just go to town, and I can build out another API, but I think that this example at least kind of shows you how to dig down into the A-frame framework. And I will take whatever requests that you have in terms of Python and building out better, it's just a better API for you to grab onto different aspects of the world and the functionality and so forth. So I'm totally up for that. And then lesson 20, at this point, it doesn't have that much of the whole UI. But at this point, here's something it's important because this is getting designed so that the student, all these programs, these games or these experiences, these 3D multiplayer experiences, they can all run on the desktop, the mobile, and in the VR. So we have to kind of find a happy medium with different things. That's why I'm using a diegetic or kind of in the game user interface where it's kind of like the characters doing the interacting with the user interface. So if I just change this over here, let me make it a little larger so it's not so taxing on the eyes. But this is what my students, one of the things my students did this week, and I could say, walk the vast expanse, and greet the animals. I don't know. And then I'll just click save and then build. And then I'll go ahead and actually make it smaller again and go back. And we'll see. Look at that, it's already built. By the time I was able to click that back here, it's already built. So what did I do? I just changed, I didn't go through the lesson here. Let me just show you a little bit about this lesson, what this is about. It introduces them to a little bit of game development. So I try to have some different people from like Blizzard or EA, like some professional game developers or software engineers, speak with them like via Google Hangouts during the school year, where they can ask them questions and so forth. So I want to get the kids using some of the lingo that's used in the industry. I don't try to burden them though with jargon. I don't believe in that. I believe that they should be immersed in the activity and then let the grammar and all that jargon come later. But so the UI looks kind of like this when it's brought up. This has been fixed. This little blunder over here has been fixed since yesterday at least, or 2 days ago. And this is basically the layout of the UI that they're given by default, and I'll show you that in a moment. But I give them names. I do believe that they should get used to using certain naming conventions, at least with certain things. And everybody should have a common language for certain things. So we do whenever it's necessary. I just try to keep it at a minimum, but whenever it's necessary, we'll do that. And then we go over here. How do they open it? So this is how they open it on the laptop. You press the back quote key under the escape key. On the mobile phone, you press this button right here. Double tap it, actually. Double tap it. That's a lot of people think it's single. I could set it to single tap, but I like double tap to avoid accidental calls on it. And then for VR, you press that button, like in the Oculus Quest, for example. You just press that button right there and it'll bring it up. Talk about moving through the fourth wall. So if you're in theater as well, that's common phrase used. And then this was what they were asked to do. So I just changed that, right? So if we go in and inspect the change, we'll look at that. And I'm going to come out of this then. So if I go in here, go up a little bit, press the back quote key, and here's and if I go to the mission, here's the UI. I go to the mission over here, and it says walk past or walk the vast expanse and greet the animals. And of course, this is just HTML that's going in here. Not all HTML can be handled. There are some limitations, and some of those are mentioned right here pretty much underlying this. I'm using an HTML embed component that was written by another person in the A-frame community, and I've been kind of editing it somewhat. But you can add like interactive elements here. So you can put buttons on, obviously, because it's interacting with buttons anyway. But you can have a lot of interactive elements here. You can have so over here is like showing stats. So you can have SVG. These are all dynamic SVG elements. I also use the D3 library, which is a nice way to visualize data. But I don't have, my students aren't even doing the stats full on for a couple weeks yet. So that's where I'm at. Kind of give you a picture of where my students are at. I'm going to maybe stop sharing for a second here. And I will jump back over here to the chat. Maybe I'll turn on my, and I'm back. Okay, so what I'm really looking to hear from you, or maybe like where you'd like to go. You can put that in the chat, some objectives that you might have that are particular to your immediate situation in the classroom, or that you see some other teachers maybe being able to benefit if something were the case. If you see any roadblocks, I'd really appreciate that. I know a few folks had also said that they had wanted to contribute to the project. I can go over that here in just a little bit, how I think are good entryways or pathways to that. Well, I will bounce back over in here. And what I'd like to do next then is to take you to the look at the IDE project and look where you can actually customize the lessons for your own purposes. Okay, so like I said, there's a bunch of lessons that you saw in there, but those are lessons that I thought, from my perspective, hey, that's what my kids needed at those times, and I'm not going to pretend that everything that my students or I see them needing is what you see your students needing. I absolutely understand that. So I'm just going to go over here to Glitch. I'm going to show you where the CS1 IDE, and if you did the remix, if I go back over here and kind of highlight, if you do the advanced workflow, the CS1 IDE remix will make you a copy of the IDE project. So if I go down here, here's the main IDE project. I actually looked into and it's just a Glitch project. This project over here, Glitch, and whenever I'm updating it, just for your information, whenever I'm updating this, all I do is I'll just remix the IDE project, and I'll just update it in another fork, another remix of it, and then I'll come back into here, and then I'll just export that remix to GitHub. Then I'll import it into the main project. So it's just that's the way I've been kind of handling this and managing it. But if we go over here in this public directory in the CS1 IDE, and then into the components and into the lessons directories. Okay, so going down from public into components and then lessons, we have this file here called templates.mjs, and that file right there basically currently contains 22 lessons. It's a JSON document, and you can just follow the pattern. You can literally copy this, and what I will do is I will do a remix. Let me just do it. Let me just click over here. Sorry, click over here and I'll remix. So I'm not going to mess with the main IDE project. So I'm going to remix this. So I just made my own copy of the IDE. Now I can make my own custom lessons. And if you want to, you can just maybe keep one lesson. What if you wanted to do that? Let's just say, hey, I don't think any of these lessons are really that useful. I mean, hopefully there's some value to them, but at least for an example. But I just get rid of all of them. Maybe for one, I keep out one for a template. And it's like, wow, how do I... and for right now, let's just do something super simple. Say you didn't even want to call it lesson one. Say you wanted to call it something totally different. I mean, who says... And why am I using these emojis? What's going on with that? Say you wanted to say... hello coding. Maybe you wanted to encourage your students with like a phrase like that, hello coding, or welcome to coding, or something. I'm say welcome. That sounds better. What if you want to say that? Welcome to coding. All right. Just with that change alone. Now this doesn't even need to get built. Now if I go open this up and go open this in a new window. Now if I go to that other project, and I think I still have it open, right? I should close it. Yeah, I'm going to close that. Shouldn't have it linked to two different, because this is connecting into the other project, the webinar. Do that. Boom, that was just like nothing. It just showed up so fast, right? So, and then look, we only have one thing in the menu, but it says welcome to coding, and it's the same. Hold it, that's the same Google Slides presentation. How do I do that? How do I get mine? And here's the thing, and this is where I really, going back to what I'm saying over here, which is kind of a little premature, me saying this, but really I plan on doing this soon. It doesn't take too much. The curricular templates, at this point, the curricular templates are like get the link out of, so if I just take out embed right here in this link, because if I stop this link for the lesson and I don't include embed, then I can open that in the new window. Whoops, did I not? Oh, did I grab the wrong? I did do that, didn't I? Let me see. Let me see if will I be able to pull this up this way. This is actually the first time I've tried this. But there we go. There we go. So literally, It pulls up like that, fine and dandy. And let me see if I can, is there any way to go over for you? I'm wondering, because this is where I just need to give you a list, and I should probably put this on the main project, give you a list of at least one template, one of these projects to use as a template so that you can easily just make a copy of it. Because I don't see any, unless somebody else knows. Let me check the chat here. Somebody else know how to quickly make a copy? Okay. All right, so it looks, looks like my screen share has stopped, so I'm going to kick that back up. I'm sorry, I did not notice my screen share had stopped. But let me just double check in. Is it okay? Thank you for telling me that, Ronak. Did not realize that had stopped. I did not know what contributed to that stopping. I don't know if there's any built-in limitations on the time spent or what have you with the screen share, but but thank you. I realized I must have gone dark for like 2.5 minutes there.
That's fine.
Okay, and it was doubly complicated because I turned my sound down. So you must have been like, whoa, this guy, because I turned my sound down because I don't get overwhelmed by by the background music in those games. So what I was kind of fessing up to, I guess, at this point is this curricular templates section right now is really kind of, and I'll take care of that today. I will. It's like when you go into, and you missed out on this, I guess, is doing the CS1 IDE remix. But let me go ahead and do that here again. So the CS.
I think that's fine. I think you kind of got the gist of it.
All right.
It's being able to just implement your own slides, pretty much, correct? In the remix, so that you can create your own lessons, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah. The visual. Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, it's fine. Please.
I think the visual clutter. When I went to a couple UX engineering meetups in our area, that's where, because I wasn't initially, I was kind of getting the colors right, but they were really impressing upon me because they were mostly designers and UX engineers, and they were really impressing upon me the importance of getting the colors in the presentation to really match. And I'll get the button over here. Let's talk about UX. But getting the colors in the presentation to really match exactly the colors everywhere else was a fairly important thing. So I will make the this presentation. Now you could probably just do it yourself by grabbing the ID for the presentation. It is public, but I just want to make it really easy, so it's just share with everybody, and you can just click add to your own drive. That being said, yeah, it's just making your own presentation links. But I will say that my students found a lot of value out of me definitely taking the screenshots and don't put the actual code over here. Don't encourage anything. Don't give them the opportunity to copy and paste it all. Just these are all pictures in here, and it's important that the syntax highlighting is the same color on either side. Other than that, I would say, there's not really too much to it. And then in terms of the assessment, in terms of formatively assessing the students, the same thing here. I'll give you access to all of these in a better way rather than having to dig into the remix code for like this example, for like the Google Forms quizzes. But I can go through the process with the Google Forms quiz, where the link comes from. I think that's somewhat valuable. So maybe I'll show that. So if I go back to the two different kind of pathways, or the starter flow for getting started with this, and then the advanced workflow. So if I go to the IDE remix and just click that, make another copy of the IDE. See, these things are free. It doesn't, it doesn't hurt to break it because you can just always make another copy. And it's just like, okay, it's cool vision. If you go into the public directory, into the components directory, lessons, and then the templates. So it's just where I was at. Now I'm just going to get rid of, I'll do the same thing I just did with the lights out, and is the screen share still working?
Yeah, it's working.
Okay, thank you. So I just get rid of all the other, all the other different lessons, and then you can just change the lesson name if you want to, like I was doing right there, welcome to coding or something. Now the significance, I'll say, if I go down here, the significance of these icons are, or these emojis, I should say technically, these emojis are particular to certain source code files. So the students know that if they click on any lesson with like this little game controller emoji, that lesson is going to be editing the same source code. And you can see that doesn't change over here. But if they go to like lesson 5, there's a different emoji, right? It's just like document emojis referencing the HTML document. So it loads up that different source code. If I go down here, this is actually server source code. This is actually, they're actually building out their own add-on to the server. And this is pretty cool. So I have to do some exception handling. I have to do some try-catch type of exception handling on this, of course, since the moment that they save this to the server, the server can potentially break. So I have to try to do that as gracefully as possible. But this lesson is pretty cool. And so I use a satellite. I didn't know exactly what emoji to use, but I used the satellite. And you don't have to use the same convention of using emojis. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying that this is the way that I've been conveying to my students in this minimalist fashion as to what source code is associated with which lesson. And then down here, like the Python little picture of a snake emoji, well, that's because that's the Python scripting that the script they're going to be doing. And then down here, for each of the UI pages, I kind of did it a little bit differently. So it's a little more verbose. UI page 2. So there's pages for content, and then the menu 1. So these are different files as well. So that's how those. That's why that's showing up over here. Here you can see there's that one emoji. I just copy and paste the emoji from wherever. Just a lot of the. If I right click here, I can go emojis and symbols and get it that way. But you can just get emojis from any emoji website and put them in there if that's what you want to do. And then when you're doing like if I go to the project here, if I go to my drive, go to the kind of how I organize some of the stuff here I do on the drive is I put in these folders and so forth. So if I have lessons, and what I'll do is I just really don't need a whole bunch. I share a lesson, and I just get that share link out to everybody but all these to all y'all, so you can just make copies of these because it has all the colors built in them. So like when I'm just making a new lesson, this is what I'll do. I just organize the units in folders. And so many of my fellow teachers, I've known all my, at least ever since the Google Docs and Google Slides have came out, have been really happy about using these. So I just go over here and just go right click and make a copy. And it's just making now I already have all that color theme. It's already done. Didn't want to have to go make my own custom theme for Google Slides or anything. I just copy the same. And then I just copy that. I just give you the basic idea, though, and I would call this like lesson 23. I'll have to do this anyway, but so then I will go in here, do the lesson, make all the adjustments, add whatever slides, amend whatever slides, and so forth. And then it would just be a matter of, at this point, I'll go File, Publish to the Web, and then click Embed. this isn't going to matter anyway because it's not going to auto, in our context, it's not going to auto advance anyway. But if I go to embed and publish, click OK, I'm ready to publish. I grab this, all right, and I grab that, and I'll usually like dump it. I'm always using my text area, this website. Anyways, this is for some Python script for my other class, but then you just grab the link right there. This link go the whole way. I take it the whole way up to this delay. Copy that link right there. That's the link that goes into the lesson. So if I go back to that, the templates, you just go right over here, and I'll just show that that's the one that's linked, right? So just proof of concept. So there's that link in there, and then I go over here and maybe change it a little bit. Maybe I go, because the other one's going to be, maybe I'll look at page 1, which will be, page 1 is actually currently used for stats. Well, maybe I'll do page 3. But anyway, I just do so you know it's different. So page 3, and then we'll go over here, and we've changed that, and then literally go in here. I want to close it out over here though again, because I didn't handle that properly. I don't want it to clash. Webinar, and I'll go 222. Now I'm in over here, and I'll look at that. Welcome to coding. Now it's page 3. It's that easy. You just make a copy of the presentation and change it to however you want. You make up whatever the lesson's going to be. Now, of course, I have the wrong file associated. So maybe now we can look at how we're going to deal with this aspect of it. So if we go to the here's the webinar remix that I did. I'll make it a little larger so you can see it. If we go down here into the source code, kind of diving a little bit deeper, and that's why I call this a more advanced thing. If we go into the core of what we're calling the engine, into the source code in the core of the engine, go into the components. In the components, say I was going to deal with the VR UI. It's the virtual reality user interface. And then I wanted to go, it was page 3, I said, right? So anywhere in the source code, you can do the same thing. So it's page 3. This is what I want to basically link to. Now, I already knew this file path anyway. I could have just typed it. But you can just go over here. I mean, you could, however you want. So this is the file path that needs to be added into the template. So it's source core components, VR UI, page 3 HTML. So if I go over here, source. So same thing over here, source. So it's dot / it's the only thing different from there. So if we look over here, there's a slight difference. So there's a dot / to say start at the present spot. So dot / source core components, except right here we're going to change it and diverge to the VRUI directory, and then go page 3. I said page 3.html. Now it's going to be, if I go over here and refresh this and log in, now we have the page 3 HTML over here, just like that. It's whatever source code that you want to expose that's associated with. So the promise of this is that any lesson's going to have exactly one file in the source code associated with it. It's also part of maintaining the focus. And then the last aspect, of course, is that what hasn't changed is the quiz. So just trying to be thorough here. So this is the previous quiz. So what do I do now for quizzes? So I usually organize my stuff in just Google Drive. But if I go in here in the Google Drive now and I go over to, so I kind of break out quizzes in a separate, I have my own reason for kind of like organizing my quizzes this way. But if I go over here, Unit 6 says lesson 23. So I go over here and make a copy of this one. So I go to my previous lesson usually and just copy it. That's the way I do it. And rename it lesson 23. And we have somebody else out. Question? Okay, Tammy. All right. Wow. So I will upload this video with a couple edits, of course, at downtime. I'll upload this into YouTube, so you'll be able to have this as a resource afterwards, for sure. Yeah. All right. So all this organization should be pretty much the kind of a status quo type of thing for many teachers. I understand that many teachers don't use even Google Drive at all. I understand that a lot of teachers will still, uh, you know, at least use Xerox copies of whatever they've made. But that said, I don't think it's too much of a hurdle for most teachers to get up using the Google Drive. So I'm just going to lesson 23. That's what, see, it already changed the lesson. I'm just going to say the center panel. I won't change that. So it's obviously a different lesson. So over here, I'll go send. And then I'll change it over here to the little embed symbol. Then I'll click copy. And then I'll go over into here. And I will just paste the iframe that it gives me. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy that link. That link right there, copying that link goes a long way, because all I have to do now is put that in the quiz URL. Go over to the quiz URL and paste it right in there. Now if I go and refresh the IDE, boom. That I just break. Let me see. So if I go to, I got the lesson 23 right, but now why did I? Looks like I broke the. Did I break something? Looks like I did. Let's see here. What did I do with the templates that I just source core components? No, I didn't break the. Oh, maybe that's a problem right there. Let me see. I usually fold this up. Let me just go ahead and refresh this. See if I get that. Make sure I get the right source code loaded. Should actually do a double check. Now, there we go. Didn't like that return that was in there. All right. So sometimes those invisible characters cause problems. So over here, if I go, and I got lesson 23, page 3, the thing. So that's all you need to do to set up the lessons. But like I said, that's an advanced thing. If you're working with existing like parts of the source code, which pretty much most of the time you can get so far with just literally the default. So if I close out of this, close out of that remix, let me get out of there, out of here, close that up. But if you get into just the initial, now the ID's starting up a new one. New container starting up. Okay, so if you get through this, you can see I'm already tapping into what, 1, 2. I didn't go over this. This is a config file. This, you get a lot of mileage out of this. Now, configuration files, there's a whole story about how much should you break out in the configuration. How much you should just have good defaults in the configuration, and what's the balance between the role that configuration plays in any application. But I think for any I think for most users are going to benefit from a well-designed configuration file. And I think the students, it's a great way to introduce them to JSON, JavaScript object notation, since that's what the file type syntax that we're using over here. And what I found with my students is they were quickly able to see, and it's great because the moment that I break something over here, watch what happens if I go and I do this. See how all the coloring changes? The syntax highlighting is just immediate. So I don't have autocomplete or anything like that. Try to over engineer this. Not that that couldn't be advantageous, but they can see, my students see once they break that syntax how the colors change. And I tell them, I didn't incorporate that in the lessons, I tell them to do that. So maybe I can be more explicit in some of the lessons to kind of like look for the syntax highlighting. That's the, and you can break out whatever you want to into this configuration file and just access it. And now I just like to talk a little bit about the global object. So if I launch the game, I can show you what's kind of available in this CS1 game engine global object. And I'll open up the JavaScript console here.
Welcome to CS1 Community Park. Please join us at 9 p.m. for some tasty roasted marshmallow s'mores.
So over here in the JavaScript console, if we just type in CS1 and go dot, and let me turn the sound down a little bit. I know I don't want to block you out, so if you have something to say, speak up. But CS1, we can see, we can control the back. Oh, I can just do the background music right here. Watch. So BGM. Pause. There we go. Now I can turn the sound up the whole way and hear you very well. So the actual global object is just called CS1. And we have background music. We can access the cam here. Anything that you would put in the scene that would be a collectible item. Didn't go into that. They can access in here, and that's covered in a lesson. Like the database API is real straightforward. I didn't add a lesson on that. That's coming up very soon. The database, I do have a YouTube video on that. It's very easy for the students to save stuff into the, it's just a flat database, but the interface is generic, so you could put anything else behind it. It's currently using an object database, but that being said, if you have any questions about the database interface, they also have it on the, not this GitHub, but if I go over, not on the IDE, but on the actual CS1, if I go over here, let me show you that. There's also a little wiki. None of these wikis are very well developed, but if I go over here, you can see the database API on the CS1 section. You can see how you store data. Just make yourself up a callback function, and then you can just call database get some type of data, and then pass in a callback function. And you can set data in a similar fashion as well. You can set, just by going over here, CS1 DB set, the name of the key that you want to set, and then the value, and then pass in the function that you're using as a callback. And here's an example callback function. So this is designed to be very nice. My students, I'm just going to have the students store like the preferred avatar or like some score or something about the user, and then so when the user signs back in again, that's going to be pulled up from the database. So my students aren't quite there yet because I'm still working with them on some other things. I need to get them up to mastery with a couple other things first. But if you wanted to look at, for example, if you wanted to check out different voices, so if you typed in print voices, it will print out all the voices that are available like in the browser that it can speak with. Like if I wanted to speak with Oliver, I could say, this, let me, if I clear that. But, so if I did like CS1 say, and said I wanted to say hello there, and then I wanted to say it with the Oliver voice.
Hello there.
Okay, so we had, that's a little louder, I guess. So there's the Oliver voice. So you can actually test out certain things before implementing them over in the developer tools. So I do introduce that to my students as well. I haven't broken out into a lesson per se. And then you can even interface with different components. You can add components onto the global object so that you can kind of interact with them from other objects, like the jukebox right here has a spot at the first tier down on the CS1 global object. You can log. Okay, let's look at the log. Log and log all. Log will just log it onto the, so if I did I am fine, and then if you just do log I am fine, now if I go over to the log screen, it will say that only on your log screen. But if you did log all, it would say it on everybody else's who's connected as well. So there's a lot of other things. I know I have to document the global namespace and all those like the smaller APIs that are part of the system better, and I can definitely improve in that way. So I just do. I'll open up a regular remix and then a clean start as well. So this is the regular remix, and specifically, like I'll just answer some of those specific questions you said. So currently, and I'm already working with somebody else I've already made like a version on my own in my own little local dev space. I've already made some changes, like for example to that jukebox, and I've made it for local file access. But all you have to do, it's currently just set up for like SoundCloud.
Yep.
And if I just typed in like I don't know, Bach. So Johan, I'm just gonna grab this Canon ND, Pachelbel's Canon ND, and I'll just go click this. It has to have a share button. Not everyone's gonna work, but
Yep.
click on embed, copy the embed code,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just use this because it's convenient. And then you look for where it says tracks, and then the track number is directly after the tracks /.
Right.
So that's that track number. So I just if I go over here into the index HTML for the regular remix, and go down here to the tracks for this. So if I take out that, and now if I just call this instead of Old Town Road, Canon ND, for example, and then I didn't put an admin key on this yet, so let me just do that, and then just go over here and load it up. I said you have to check. You definitely have to check these because whenever you have an account, I don't know if you have a SoundCloud account, but if you host some stuff on there, you can actually stop. You can actually set in the settings, I believe, set it so that third-party streaming is disabled. No, I forget what the heck I typed in. 655. All right. So you can see now it just says Canon ND.
Welcome to CS1 Community Park. Please join us at 9 p.m. for some tasty roasted marshmallow s'mores.
Okay. So Canon ND was definitely allowed to use the third-party streaming API or whatever. So that works fine. Some of them won't, but you just have to find that currently. But you could do it with I will soon. I'll get around to that because I know I promised somebody I'd do that by the time Christmas break was over or whatever, or the December break for us, and we are just really about to that point of the year anyway. But like that specifically that jukebox, I am going to change it so that you can just put your own MP3 files wherever and host it. As long as you did have the core settings, I guess, on your server. If you just do it right from Glitch in the assets, you'd be good too. Just so it's your own. That's why I didn't do it for my students, because I do not want to have my students get booted from Glitch for putting some other copyrighted MP3s in there. So, just saying that's why I haven't kind of thrown that out there yet. In terms of that, in terms of the name, say I wanted that name to be like Oliver. A lot of times you don't have to go into the IDE necessarily, right? You can just go down into the core config, and here's the client config right there. So if you don't want to use the IDE and just start navigating the source code, I try to organize it, fairly well. So it would be in the source core config, the client config, and if you just go down here, for example, to where it says voice, the voice that I have there is this one, and I just found it in the print voices, and I just found it, and if I change that to Oliver, then it will just, that's all I need, except I need to build it, remember? So if you do it from Glitch, and this will help you out, to build it from Glitch, we'll run it this way. let the full page console load up. So you can do either pn right pnpm run dev or pnpm run build. So dev's going to be faster, right? Of course, and then build's going to give you the small bundle and parse out all the comments and other stuff. But I'm just going to do run dev just so I can get that incorporated as fast as possible. So look at that, 1.4 seconds. Not bad, right? For a free service, right? It's not like I'm
Glitch is amazing.
not like I'm paying a cent for it, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I thank Anil Dash every day for that, and the whole crew that works over there. So if I go over here, what did I, 655, I think. No, I didn't. Oh, I didn't put a. What? Which one did I build? Oh, did I just build? Or did I build it for Fantastic Orbit? I realized I have two different things open.
Yeah.
I had to, see, this is my problem. I didn't even add an admin key here. Let me add one. All right. Because it's so easy, right? It's just so easy, literally. Here we go.
This world can be anything you dream it to be, a carnival, a haunted house, a city, anything. It is all up to you. You have the power to create. May inspiration dwell in you forever.
All right. So,
Sorry. I was wondering, like, where is the messaging, the actual, like, so we changes to Oliver, but when he says this world,
yep.
That aspect, where is that coming from?
Okay. So specifically that line, if you go to the client configuration file, that's referred to in the configuration as a welcome message.
Oh, okay.
And then
I was trying to do that and it didn't change for me. But yeah, okay. So I looked at that welcome message. So
yep.
If I input any string to that, will it kind of translate that text to speech?
Yes. Yes, provided that you're playing it through a browser that implements it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm hoping the VR will eventually kind of open that up. I'm going to looking at some other options. Like I said, this is also just great for prototyping.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I saw some A-frame component where you can actually, it has inbuilt or something where it's like you say open box or open something. It will recognize the speaker, rather the mic from your device, and then just do an implementation on it. So for example, say open menu, and it'll open the menu. So you say it and it will.
Yeah, for sure. I do that in like in this other, when I was talking to you about like the kids that I did this whole thing.
IoT, yep.
Yeah, like this right here. If I open this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the kids are literally, they're doing their quiz exactly that way. They go into this.
Wow, cool.
And this is made with A-frame too, and they do their quiz, and then they have to speak to move these boxes and collect these collectibles, and then once they're actually collecting power to jump, and then they have to jump up on all these things. But yeah, definitely have done that. In terms of the actual, so you saw that, so you can just use the say command, and that's all I'm using behind the scenes is, and say all, and anywhere in your code you can just implement that. I mean, if you so in the IDE, right, anywhere in the IDE, if you just, rather than just this, if we did like cs1 dot say all, and then you can also pass in a voice right here as well. So even though this is different, this doesn't have Oliver, but I could pass in Oliver right here. And it depends, if because some people might be playing in VR, some people might be playing at the same time and on the phone, but some people aren't going to hear it, right? Obviously, if it's not implemented. But then if you just, and I tell them you can't count on the voice to speech as a guarantee when you have people across platforms where you don't have that. I mean, text to speech when it's not implemented. So, But if everybody's on, something that implements it, then of course. But if I launch this, it will wait till the other one's finished, I think. Let me see.
Hello.
Oh, it did it first.
Yeah. It did.
Welcome to CS1 Community Park.
Okay.
Please join us at 9 p.m.
Yeah,
for
so
some tasty
so it even
roasted marshmallow
so it even
s'mores.
super oh right. It's definitely going to go first because, and I'll tell you, doy, it definitely is going to go first specifically because in here, because I have down here with the voice, I have a welcome delay. I don't even call on the, because
Right.
I don't start this, because I want that welcome, that sound. I want that, like I'm using that. I know that's really disturbing to some people, that thunder sound. But that thunder sound, I want that thunder sound to play for a little bit before the lady starts talking.
Yep.
So that's why that Oliver voice beat this lady in talking, because I didn't even call it until this 4-second timeout was expired. Yeah, but then I have, if you like the music in the background,
Yep.
that's also using. So I'm actually doing 2 tracks at the same time from SoundCloud.
Oh, okay.
So this is actually the background music. This is actually coming from SoundCloud right here. This is the same thing, just another track. And it allows you to do 2 calls to the same third-party domain with the 2 tracks being played over top of each other. So this is doing like that environment sound. And then this is you can set that whenever a player joins, anytime a player joins, you can have a sound go off. Yep. You can have a different one. I just have the same one. I just have the thunder sound each time in this one, in this example. And then other stuff. I'm still working on updating the avatar system, because my avatar hands, I don't know, I was in a rush. I made the avatar hands, especially if you choose the avatar that's supposed to be like the one in VR where the hands move exactly with you. They kind of do, but it's off. And I just have to get back to that. It's not my priority right now, but it's definitely, I have 2 different types of avatars. And then I have in here, so you have this lesson link or this presentation link. So the generic, the 3D modeling workflow my students typically do is they'll do something in Magic of Voxel because it's super easy. And they'll just use Blender basically as a converter. They can use the online converters, but a lot of them, or the most popular one there, I'm making my own GLB converter for the people that want to shortcut it, but not right now. But the avatar, the next slide, if it loads, whoops, thought it was the next slide. Let me refresh this. Yeah, avatar creation workflow, that's what it is. The avatar creation workflow, if you click on that, that's a separate presentation. It's referring to Blender 2.79, but I haven't updated it yet to 2.8, but it's even a little bit easier on 2.8. It's basically the same thing, though.
Right.
And it's just using Mixamo, and so it's like using Magic of Voxel, using Mixamo to load to rig it and to load some animations on it, and just use in here, just use these names for the animations over here, idle and walk. Currently, I'm only implementing idle and walk, but you just use idle and walk in that particular when you're setting it up in Blender, and then bring it right into the game engine. So and I even have a link right here. You can grab this and use this as kind of a template to change in Magic of Voxel, this particular model, and you can change it, and tell them some of the topology to use, and then I just go through the whole process right here, how to do it on Magic of Voxel, and then how to get it in the Blender, and this is 2.79, but it's, like I said, it's easier now, and then setting up the different animation tracks. And just I go through every single thing here, 2.79, I'll probably make a new video, just a full length video for 2.8, and then when it's on, when you get it into you basically import two different files, one animation per file. Um, one I actually import one file that has the character and like one animation, and then another file that has the other animation. And this goes through the whole process. Then you push this down, and then you upload it. Then I just have them upload it and test it, and then just to make sure that whenever they upload it and put it in the tester, that like for example, that they name the animations correct, because I have them go over here to expand the animation, make sure it
Right.
says walk and make sure it says idle with
Yeah.
lowercase w, because the API is expecting that. Otherwise, they have to dig deeper in the source code and change it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this process is definitely like because I was trying to rig up like models or creating a model and stuff, and I did not know about Blender or Mixamo, but I
Mm-hmm.
tried like kind of going down the rabbit hole and started like doing it and things like that, and then eventually I did got the model, and I had someone else kind of help me do a texturing on the model, and then I still don't like I have the animation in Blender for the 3D object. It's a yeah, it's a GLTF file, but I couldn't get the animation to work basically, um, until very recently. But yeah, these kind of things are definitely useful, like when we're building stuff. So I would feel like a bet like a video on this process would be great as well, like helpful for people or people in general,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously the kids to build something. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that. I already have that on my to-do list as well. So what I appreciate is, yeah, also anything that you want to add over here, like I was showing you the wiki that's in the GitHub repository. That's also a good place just to post things and just posting issues, right?
yeah,
I always kind of tag myself
yeah.
just to do certain things, and um,
Yeah.
I should probably wrap more things as I kind of expose maybe some more things on the server, or even some APIs for just for running like system calls through Bash commands
Mm-hmm.
remotely in the from the game server, from the edits that the students do, because I'm basically just using that will be a probably very helpful for yourself as well, because I'm going to need to do some more stuff like that. I don't know if you have an interest in Rust at all, but I,
Okay.
I am very interested in what Rust could do with a
Mm-hmm.
system like this to take some of the hot spots, some of the kind of like the bottlenecks, and open them up with
Yeah,
with a lot
I
more
feel
performance.